Howdy. Okay, this is working. This is super bright to look at. Alright, so today I was going to mess with animating a bit. Not 100% sure what I'll do, but that's the intention. Leave this to the side. Maybe I'll start. Alright, so today I was going to mess with animating a bit. And I need to turn the audio down here. Okay. Cool. Everything in frame? Everything good? Cool. Thanks for joining in, folks who are joining. I haven't done much with like a square guy in a while. Maybe I'll do that. Too bright. Let me turn down the brightness here. That's a little better. I think. Let's see what it looks like on the feed. Hello. I don't know what your full name is. Let's see. Yeah, that looks a little bit better for me. A tiny bit brighter. It's also that right now I'm using pencil. Let's see. I haven't done anything with a square person in a bit animation wise. More of a blockhead guy. I want to try and transition. Like make a few of these guys and then have them shift locations. Did that at some point kind of recently. It's a little bit of a simplified deal. What if it's like this is all in frame? Yeah, this is all in frame. What if it's sort of a dude walking left to right and squashing and stretching so it pushes down and out and bows out a little bit as that sort of and then gets super skinny at the top. Maybe. I also had some response that people liked a little bit more of the rougher looking things, so maybe I'll try doing some dry brush. I'm gonna try sketching these guys a couple times and see what I like. I got a new camera stand, which is why you get a good, nice, straight down guy. That's a pretty dry guy. Now I can come in or out. Same with that one. Depends on how I treat it. That one's better for filling. I'm doing this. I'm using something called Yellow Duck and OBS to stream it out. I learned a little bit of using OBS a while ago when I was trying to get into some Twitch streaming, and it never quite took because I don't have a Twitch audience and I didn't take the time to build it. So so I learned a little bit of OBS. I forget what it stands for. Something broadcast system, maybe. Yeah, I should, Brett. Yeah, it's okay. You can see me, and I'm clear. Multiple screen, it's OBS. So there's a camera here, camera there, and I also have another camera that's more a novelty, but I can switch it on. And show you up close stuff. That's pencil markings. But that's more a novelty thing. If you search OBS, then you can find that it's an open source program that does streaming, and it takes a little bit to get into it because it's pretty bare bones, but there's it's for Mac and PC, and I'm running this off of my Mac. And then there's a program called Yellow Duck. There are probably other ways to go about it. Let me draw this guy. Let me draw some little ones and see how rough I want to try and go with it. But it's a streaming thing, so I tried it out for Twitch, and it works. It's just a little bit to get into it, and I had to mess with some settings because I didn't know much about how it was working. But they're more accessible streaming things that you can use on PC than Mac. Mac has some, but there are more that are a bit more accessible using PC. Let's see about going even rougher with it. This guy. It's okay. I think we're gonna go with mild dry brush. If is this one, yeah, that's the one I was using. And let's figure out about how large I can make these guys. Can also mess with depends what you're doing and how you're using your Mac and your PC. I do tend to be a little bit more haphazard with my Mac. I do have a PC, but it's a little bit older. I got it through a project. And then I've spent enough time working with compatibility things that it's more work for me I work a lot slower on a PC just because it's less familiar. shorter and fatter. And maybe split into three faces. Down skinny and then somewhere in between. So what I'm gonna probably mess with is I think this guy could be a more extreme skinny guy. It's not going quite as rough as I thought I might. Skinny squished. Those are my two extremes. Can hold on either of these for a bit. Here's me. Started getting pace. Usually I work sort of directionally. Not doing in betweens. That pitched. Figuring some things out. So let's find an average guy that's settled between these two. I think of myself as being just the skinniest version of most of them. I've always liked drawing people super tiny skinny. Triangle guy I don't like as much because he's got a pointy head, and if I'm not careful it looks mildly like racist in the sense that it looks a tiny bit like a pointed hood, so I avoid doing too much of triangle guys just because if they're too prevalent I don't like how it looks. So let's get an average guy, settled person. I guess might have two noses. Should be one fat nose or two. I think it should be two, so that it's sort of in between the tall and the short. Let's say this is frame 1. So I'm going to do this, I don't know, just repeat this guy a few times and then have him react. Should be settle, skinny, out. Should be, I think it should be out, maybe, because if it's just an accordion, it doesn't look as interesting. I want it to sort of settle. Exercising creativity is important to me. It comes out in different ways. The specific sort of process is one thing. I like seeing things sort of come to life, and that works for this. I'm trying to do these bits sort of every day. That's the idea, is that live streaming on the daily, creating designs, and then making those designs available on currently shirts, because that's the easiest. Oh, I'm gonna use this guy. Is that in frame? Yeah, it is. One frame. Trying to do this maybe 5 times. Two, click. Because this is going sort of in a direction and it's going to have some bigger changes. I'm not as concerned with this figure being exactly the same or as similar frame to frame, but typically what I would do is keep referencing the same frame over and over again. So instead of drawing the second frame and then going on top of it, what I would normally do is keep referencing that same first frame, because when you repeat things over and over again, sometimes you make small mistakes. And if you have a mistake and you repeat it a bunch of times, you might exaggerate that mistake. And then something that's supposed to be stationary sort of warps or does odd things. So just to have a settled moment with this guy that's not very long at all. It'll just be for a fraction of a second, but it'll make it so it's sort of like popping into 3 different forms, messing with classic animation techniques, styles. 3. Squash and bounce, that sort of deal, or squash and stretch, that's what it's called. I didn't take any formal animation classes really, and none for 2D. This is just sort of exploring, learning. Trial and error, getting a bit of my own methodology mixed with pre-existing practices. But no, this has to be perfect. It's a weird balance to find. Animation is both forgiving and not forgiving. Because you need to have consistency, but not too much consistency, because everything's always moving. So nothing is ever on screen for an extended period of time, one drawing to the next. But you have to understand what does need to be consistent to express what you want conveyed. So it's settled for a second. I don't know if it's better to, let's see. I think it will probably look better to go skinny first and then short and wide. Because it can sort of splash out. And then come back in. This also isn't the steadiest way of keeping the frames on top of one another. Let's get these out from underneath. So now I'm gonna have it transition towards this guy. So by stacking these, I can see the frames before it and where I'm sort of going towards. I might switch these up into these reversed because you can see the one that's on top a little better. So to get a sense of acceleration, I'll start with smaller changes and then more exaggerated. So do I want it to sort of go whoop or bump up? I think I want it to bump up a little bit, but not too much. So, because the first one, I'm not going to do too much. Make it a little bit taller. It's frame 6. A little bit thinner, a little bit taller, but not too much. And give this slight bow, but not too much. And then this guy comes in a little bit. And this guy comes up a little bit. This guy goes over because I want to combine the noses together. A little angle coming up a little bit. This guy comes up a little bit. Little by little, going for changes. I'll leave the lips in the same spot, and it'll make it so there's a variance of speed, not everything going at once, instead sort of a whoop. Instead of a whoop. Hopefully that makes sense. 6 frames. I might actually switch over to having this guy on top just because it'll make it faster overall. Keep barely touching my hair on this camera. So, a little bit more, but I'm going to exaggerate it towards the top. And we'll make it is a very satisfying counter. This is my favorite one. It's the super chunky guy. And it works. I've got this one, That's a bit smaller. Got this little guy that has the lightest touch and works probably the best. And then it also, I think, has the highest numbers on it. And then I have the one that doesn't rest, this clicker. And that's got the smoothest motion because it's the newest one, but it doesn't sit in a stand. This, I don't have a light box going right now. This is just using tracing paper. I made this one custom. I bought a piece of flat wood and painted it generally white. And then I got a kit for putting pegs into, 1/4-inch pegs into like furniture, because you can use it to help with joints. Like a lot of furniture, just you drill a hole in either side and then put a peg with some wood glue in there, and then it helps to reinforce that joint. So I got one of those, drilled those in, and got some dowels. Initially I used the little pegs that came with it. I tried that on a different piece of wood. Yeah, joining pegs. You can find them at any hardware store. But I got 1/4-inch dowels so I could make them longer. And this is going to be chaotic to show, but I gotta be careful moving it. Over here I have a more exaggerated version. Or not exaggerated, but it's longer pegs, because I just cut the dowels longer for that one. Then put it in with some wood glue. To line these up with the hole punch, I just punched 3-hole punch into a piece of paper, taped it down, and used that to register. I just found my thing on Amazon. It was like a peg installation kit thing. It came with, yeah, these are all just regular hole punch stuff into various paper. Yeah, registering it, just punch the hole into the paper, tape it down, and then use that to drill your holes. If you are doing 3-hole or 3 pegs and they're longer, you got to make sure it's a little bit more level, because these are pretty short. Getting a perfect up and down angle on them isn't as important. But if you were trying to have it so you had a bunch of different more pages that you can go on, then you'll need to be a little bit more precise with the perpendicular, the right angle of the dowel stuff going in. It works well for my sort of style of animating, where it's moderately loose. It's not super tight. Doesn't have to be as precise with things. But if you were doing something that had to be a little bit more consistent, you would probably want to get it a little bit better than what I have. This is good enough for me. Before I was just using binder clips to clip stuff together. And that works well. Yeah, I've seen some people who use just like a simple 3-hole punch, and what they do is they just clip into the 3-hole punch, like one that uses moderate force going down. Yeah, lining it up is the most difficult part, at least for me. But I just tried to take it slow, and you'll have a lot more success if you drill a pilot hole. If you get like precisely where it needs to go, put it in there. There's also a little bit of give because 3-hole punches punch a little bit larger than 1/4 inch. Hello, Nacho. And so, gotta be aware of that. I forget. But doing a pilot hole helps a lot with just drilling anything in general. Do a smaller drill hole, especially if you're drilling with a wider drill bit. If you do a pilot hole, it helps a lot. So a smaller drill bit and then widen it. It's also helpful if you're drilling into anything that's a little bit more finicky or more likely to split or something like that. Take it an extra step or two usually helps in the long run. Yeah, I'm switching over to doing the previous frame on top. Of course, I got some on there. Hello, sweet potato. And race the roof. Oh, you got the cool Mo D. Blind contour I did at some point. As your icon. Rice or race, I'm not sure what your name is or what it's. I know that it's saying like raise the roof, but I don't know if it's like your name is something. you want to raise. I think I'm just generally confused or unaware. So, you can probably see a little bit of this, but frame by frame, you can see the shifting of stuff. It's usually called onion skinning, because it looks like onion skin. The thinness of it gives you a little bit of what happened before, or in the frame prior, but you can still tell what's most recent. And all that. I prefer animating on paper. Thank you, Thomas. Just because I like how it looks and I've got a better feel for things, but certain things are much more difficult to do on paper. If there's a lot happening, it's so much easier to do it digitally because I can more easily trace what I'm, or track what I'm looking at. And what's changed frame by frame, and you can use different blending methods. Ooh, I haven't clicked in a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll keep that up in the bracket. Done. This should be here. Make a little guy. I like the look and feel of drawing on paper, and I think it ultimately looks better, or at least has a little bit more character. I also like that it's imperfect. This frame 11. Hold for 2 or 3 frames. And then I'll make it sort of pop down. I haven't been animating this way as much recently, so may or may not be super content with what it looks like. I'll find out. Do I want to do it? I just got these lights. Make everything blue and red. I'm not going to do this for a long period of time, but... Ooh. Okay. It's hard to see. Now let's make this sort of pop into place. So if it's pushing, it sort of pops. Find out if this looks good or not later. This is squashing a bit up into it. I'll see what it looks like ultimately. It's not really a guide to drawing, it's just to interact and have some form of accountability. People ask questions of how stuff gets done. Easier to just sort of show, let people see process. Have some consistency with work. This keeps clicking. So that's 1 second of animation. I also like doing live streams as a means to sort of let people see process and maybe be encouraged to make their own work. Trying to make things accessible. It's also something of a promotional tool. People have interest in things when they feel more connected to them. Depending. But my understanding of what people get out of streaming a lot of the time is just interacting in some way with a personality or person. Depends. Again, it all varies. How many of these have I done? I get distracted doing 3, 4. I'll do one more. Nope. Okay. So now I'm going to try and move towards this guy. I think I might treat it a little bit different than squat. I think it might be more of a go out at the bottom. So these lips push out and separate, and then it sort of levels back out. So this might be something of a in-between frame. Not sure. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach movement. hello in Germany. Wait, what's Guten Nacht? Is that good night? Or good evening? I don't remember. I've learned it more than once, but I forget. Willkommen, right? Is that welcome? I guess the time difference is best suited for people in the evening in Europe. I know a little bit of German, enough to say hello or welcome. A bit more Spanish, to where I can think I might understand someone who's speaking Spanish, and then I'm wrong. Very tiny bit of Chinese, but I probably sound terrible because I only did Duolingo. I did talk to my girlfriend's roommate who speaks Mandarin, but he was also very kind and was not particularly critical of my pronunciation of anything. I also know how to say thank you and thank you very much. Wait. It's danke and bitte. But I forget how to say very much. I forgot. Dankeschön. It's that song. I could say thank you in Spanish. Gracias. Italian. Prego. And Danish. Tak. English. I do not remember how to say anything like thank you in Chinese. Muy bien. Gracias. Prost. Trying to think if I know anything else in German. Guten Tag. Shishi? Okay. Is that? Are you in Sweden? I forget. I remember. I don't know how to say it in Swedish. That's probably something like tak, because there's a lot of similarities in Scandinavian languages, from my experience. I know how to say hello in Finnish, because I knew a little Finnish. Well, I knew a family friend who married someone from Finland, and then okay, it was someone else. Oh no, where are you in? I forget where you're at. There was someone who said goodbye from Sweden the other day. Someone was from Basque Country, Germany, Washington State, So a number of people from the U.S. I've looked at my like stats for where people follow me from, and it's like pretty much mostly New York. No, it's a lot in New York, and then moderate number of folks in LA. And then as far as countries go, it's pretty much, or it's primarily the US, and then UK has the second most, which I guess makes sense. I like working in line, but not for anything that's realistic. Or I have a weird sort of thing where, like, when I was in school taking painting and drawing classes, or I guess I only took drawing classes really, and then design classes. I did not like committing to any harsh lines for still lifes, stuff like that. And my teachers were like, you have a very painterly quality. But I also have a sort of, I like graphic work as well. And so I end up with this sort of extremes of either being super graphic and simplified, or being super painterly and non-committal. Or at least that's how I find comfort in not committing to anything in drawing stuff. It's all loose enough to where it makes some sense. Need to hit my counter. 1, 2, 3. Oh no. Should probably spread it a little more. No. Oh, that's behind that one. See how this goes ultimately. Line work is a lot easier for me if I'm using a brush. I don't know if you'll find that same thing if you were to go that route, but I like brushes for lines because you can push and pull a little bit as you're working. On drawing, I don't have as much go-to snacks just because I'm working physically. Other times I have potato chips. Had a cookie earlier. because I've been making a lot of cookies with quarantine stuff. And I went by the grocery store today and I got some Cheez-Its, partly because they're less greasy. And potato chips. Hello to another German. Willkommen. Guten Nacht. I forget what you say if you are German, because I know it's Deutsch. You say that you're Deutsch? No, Deutsch is just a language. But that's how it is for, like, England. I don't know. I brought the Cheez-Its up when I was setting things up. Hello, Orlando. Or are you in Orlando? I don't know. My dad's from Orlando. And that area has changed a lot over time. Okay. Another? So many Germans. Is everyone German? My dad speaks German. He studied in Switzerland, and so he knows some Swiss German that's like sort of in between. And he probably has a super weird accent if you were to hear him speaking in German. Because it's American, Swiss, German. Thanks for confusing. I ended up talking a lot about language on this just because I'm exposed to some folks that are watching that know different languages. And I like try and say hello. Hey, Brazil. I do not know how to say anything in Portuguese, but I did watch, this might be insulting or not, I don't know, but I watched Fast Five last night, which is set in Rio, and they speak a lot of Portuguese, but I don't know most of what I know about. Is this acting up? Let me file. Stuff's doing okay. Says live. Anything wrong here? No. Let me. Okay. Sorry. Oh, is it backing up now? Don't do that. I might need to adjust this if I have more people watching. Yeah, this is getting a little bit backed up. Oh, sorry. I might have some issues with more people watching or not. I don't know. But if you're having trouble watching, let me know. I'm watching from a separate account. But I watched Fast Five, which is in Rio, and most about what I know for Portuguese is that it sounds like Spanish, but it's not. Whenever I hear people speaking Portuguese, I tend to be like, "Is that Spanish?" But I don't recognize any of it, or I kind of feel like I recognize it. If any of that is insulting, let me know, and I'll try to be better about awareness of people who speak Portuguese. I have no idea how to read anything in using the Cyrillic alphabet in Russian or otherwise. No. But you have an accent on it. Hola. Hola? I don't know. I'm guessing I'd have an even worse accent since I don't know Portuguese at all. Mm-hmm. Portugal? I don't know what time it is not in Portugal. Portugal's probably like 5 hours ahead or something of where I'm at. I'm on the East Coast of the United States, New York time. But I don't know if, because I know Brazil's a large country, but I don't know if there are multiple time zones in Brazil and what time it is wherever you are. But thanks for watching, regardless of the time. Someone's revving. I'm figuring out how best to like approach these live streaming things, but to keep track of how stuff's going, since I'm broadcasting from my computer, I'm monitoring it on my phone visually to look and interact with comments and such. But that means I was using my Wi-Fi for both streaming out and streaming in, which isn't the best choice of things. Not the most effective. So I just switched to data from my phone. Maybe that'll help. Can't hurt. Thank you. I want to be accessible if I can be, or at least kind. And I know depending on the country, people might like or dislike people speaking in a foreign language poorly. Or not at all. But keep getting distracted by touching my head on this camera. I try to mix it up for white or not white faces. I just like having closed eyes because open eyes are too forward. But I don't know. I try to make things non-specific as much as possible so that you can take your own interpretation of it. Sometimes faces have features that look more one way or the other, but it's so simplified that I don't know. Part of the look of things comes from various masks from around the world. Because a lot of artwork from history has a lot of sort of graphic design-like elements to it, in the sense that it's simplified into the like core elements of like what makes a face, and what makes a face varies a little bit from like culture to culture. What becomes the most important aspect and most recognizable feature or the focal point. I need to take this forward. I know that there are some oversights in different ways when it comes to portrayal or technology or odds and ends of things. Like a lot of facial recognition software is built on or built by and for lighter skin tones, and it focuses on the shadow that comes like under the bridge of your eye and creating this sort of T shape, but that doesn't have the same contrast on darker skin tones. And so that sort of technology is built without the same concerns or awareness for universal usage, which has positive and negative effects as far as facial recognition is concerned, because ideally you don't have to deal with facial recognition technology that like things can recognize your face outright, but just oversights and things like that, or the history of photography, a lot of photo work and creating chemicals and exposure stuff was for photographing light colored skin. Specifically, a lot of film was format or like produced based on being able to photograph a white woman with black gloves and like a black dress to get all the dynamic range that you need to show dark clothing on someone who has light skin. So it doesn't, a lot of the time, photographs, you have to be more aware and take more time and care in photographing darker skin tones, because history of photography is kind of racist in that way. And just being aware of those sorts of things. And I don't necessarily recognize when something is non-inclusive, because pretty much most things are made for someone like me, straight white dude. I've never really felt ostracized. I might have been out of place sometime at like a gay club or something, but it's never like anything terrible. It's just like, oh, this space isn't designed for me necessarily, but it's still accommodating. Yeah. I can have a tiny dot popping up here. Just see. Hello, Mr. Planterior. I feel like you've joined before. You have a favorite plant? Mr. Planterior. Are you into like outdoor plants? Planting in a garden? Household plants, the study of plants? Botanist? That was more Cheez-Its. I don't know what those plants are, but they're great plants. The squiggly line on every other frame? Oh, that's me being inconsistent, but the squiggle line means that I need to fill it in later. Go back in and fill it with solid, which isn't so much an issue with what I'm doing today, but sometimes things get more complex and it's hard to keep up with what's meant to be filled in or not. It also helps just sort of get a little bit of ink off the brush. I fill it in later with a thicker brush. It's just easier to do it all at once. It's also easier to track the animation as lines and not as solids. It's easier to be consistent. Because if you have a solid that's filled in and you're trying to follow where it exists or not, there's more happening. So I do a little squiggle there. That means that's indicating to myself I gotta go in and make it solid later. It's also easier to keep stuff dry and not sticking to each other if you fill it in sort of all at once. The paper itself isn't called onion skin. That's just sort of the effect of the layering, where you see a little bit behind it and not. It's just tracing paper, and you'd call each still either a still or a frame. Eventually you need to get back to the first guy. It's gonna be a loop. Save this couple frames. It's just settled. Hello, Nina. Hello, or is that a goodbye? No joke. Hello. Hello, youth technology. I'm animating. Slowly but surely. Now I was just checking my email, because I haven't in like 2 hours. I'm animating. I don't type during these because I'm working with my hands. Audio still should be working. Hello, Mahalia Cuse? I'm not sure. It's hard to tell where people's names begin and end. And if I've talked to you before and don't recognize your screen name, I apologize. I just lose track sometimes, even of people I know. Or I only know people by what I think their screen name is, or what their username is. And then realize later, like, oh, I've been reading that wrong for years. I work at about 15. Well, I work at 15 frames per second typically. cells per second. So I'm coming up on 3 seconds for the last 2 hours. Thank you. Sorry if you're not hearing what I'm saying. Drake or Stalin. It's pretty different kinds of folks. I'll go with Drake because he didn't kill millions of people. Unless there's a historic Drake that I'm not so aware of. you're going on like weird, polarized ones where it's like not really a question. Don't want to have any forced abortion. So I'll go free eternal life. It depends on how it's being, where I am in proximity, and what the effect is. If it's just like looking at a meteor shower, watching it, that's probably better than being in any sort of proximity to a supernova, because it would kill all life on Earth, under my understanding of things. I tend to prefer Marvel things, but that's just sort of accessibility. When I was younger, I was big on watching animated Batman and Spider-Man, which I know are different sources. I've never gotten super into comics. I had a friend try to get me into, I think it's The Killing Joke is the one that makes the Joker. It would be weird to wake up from a dream as a baby. Are you saying that I wake up from the dream and I am a baby, or I'm dreaming my entire existence and then I wake up and I'm a baby? Also, I would guess I would get used to smelling poop forever. Is it something where like it gets worse steadily over time, and so I'm stuck being very aware that it smells like poop? All these have a lot of conditions. Cause like I've gotten used to whatever smells. Psst, psst. What you getting at? Someone texted me. I like basketball better than American football. For soccer. I like soccer. I'll get one more, so I got an even 45. $45. It's getting warmer. Or I'm getting warmer. Now, another guy. Let's try this guy. Switching over to a 1/4 inch to fill in these bits. Drowning is its own form of suffocation. Depends on how I suffocate. And where I'm drowning. Also, hello Cole. I'm still gonna go Drake on that one. I prefer Drake to someone who probably commits some war crimes. I try to see like what Russian leader I prefer to Drake. Is that the like thing that you're trying to slowly figure out? A or B? I like B. There are a lot more adjectives than there are pronouns, so I'm going to go adjectives. Oops, forgot an I. I feel weird commenting on any sort of skin tone preference. This is Sumi ink, so it's thinner than what you might think if you'd think of paint. This is Yasutomi, I think is what Yasutomo. Is that, I can't, let me look at my screen. Yasutomo. Sumi ink. Quality is what you want to hear, but depending on what it is, I don't need to have quality if I have enough of something. And also, there's like a different kind that comes in a green bottle that I think is a little bit more glossy, but I like this container better because it comes out of, gotta be careful here because it might spatter, because it's easy to pour out compared to when it's like a bottle like this or something. You should, if you try using it, and you're doing something like watercolor or something on top of it, you should test it first, because I've had mixed results as to whether or not it's, because some of them say waterproof, but then they don't behave very well. It's better to forgive. It's easier to forget, but if you forget, then the whole experience, what was it for? Good or bad. If you forgive, then you move on and you've learned and you've let go. I think it was John Lewis who talked about George Wallace in a documentary that I watched about the governor of Alabama, but he ran basically on a platform of pro-segregation, and later he did get shot while he was campaigning, and there's a lot of parallels with his campaigning. He was campaigning for president at some point, basically solely on pro-segregation because he knew that it riled people up and he liked attention in that way. And a lot of comparisons between that sort of campaigning and Trump's, where it's like not based on positive or like building anything, it's just reactionary and getting people to think that they're better for being hateful. But John Lewis, in an interview like later in life, talked with George Wallace, who had some sort of reconciliation, and the interviewer was asking something about like, could you ever forgive him? And he says, forgive, yes, forget, never. More about how someone who is spouting that sort of thing can rise to power. And you can watch people blindly following this person. There's also an interesting point where there's a author who I believe is an Alabamian. I'm not sure what the term is. Dude from Alabama writing about his experience growing up there and going to a George Wallace rally and reading an excerpt where he said, like, we were at the governor's rally and he said that the governor was saying how we were better than and just how the quote in time how we were better than the Negro. I was not aware that we were better than anyone, and building this sort of narrative that like no matter how little you have, you're better than someone because of their skin tone, and how that is attractive to people who might not have the most, where they're at least better than someone by default. That's unappealing. That's not true. Talent or discipline, again, depends. Discipline's a lot more difficult, but talent is its own thing. I think most people I know who are talented usually have some form of discipline that comes to it. In ideal execution, I think that I like the concept of communism better if it were to be executed in a way that is controlled. And capitalism works well too if it functions in a way that doesn't have abuse at the highest level, but that's pretty much any form of government is subject to the worst actions of those in power. And how capitalism ends up functioning on a long term. In the long term is it's very easy to get and grow at a certain level, but you have to overcome all these baseline things that are stopping you. Where ideally communism provides for everyone, and everyone can live with decency and with dignity, which by design capitalism sort of has to have people who live without dignity. It's like the idea of fame, where in order for someone to have fame, you have to have people who are without it. It's a contrast. Everybody can't be famous. Everybody can't be rich. In order to be rich, you gotta have a lot of folks who are poor. Not cool, society. depriving people of basic dignity so that people can be rich. Virtual reality has been played with in different capacity throughout history, and the understanding of virtual reality changes generation to generation. What quantifies and qualifies as a truly replicated reality. Where your entire experience is believed to be real. Everybody's understanding of how humans and biology work is often, or what the future holds, is a reflection of the technology of the time. So when telephones were getting real big, people's understanding of how the human brain worked was a reflection of that, where people thought of it as being like this operation hub where all this information's coming in and going out. And now it's much more closely connected to virtual reality and computers, but computers haven't existed throughout the entirety of human history. So people's understanding of what it means to be human was based on whatever technology was new of that moment. So when it comes to future technology, you can't really understand it because it's the sort of thing that you don't have a reference point for. A lot of things that are mundane and understood, commonplace today, would be considered magic or witchcraft at different points in time. Like, I don't know, having a magic screen that shows someone else and they can live and react with it and see it in more or less real time. And get back to communism versus capitalism and the idea that a lot of capitalists will argue that no matter what the future holds, technology will invent and adapt to create a more inhabitable world. That necessity breeds invention, which I don't really agree with, and a sense of the world dying. But different thoughts, ideas, and concepts. So many people texting. Let me angle this a little bit down. Oh wait, no, I can do it digitally. Wrong one. I really like thinking about the Turing test, the idea that whether or not you know or would believe that you're talking to a computer, but that to make a computer believable as a human, you have to make it kind of petty and inconsistent. Like a computer that immediately responds completely earnestly and enthusiastically is a good reflection of how people interact with each other. Not like in a bad way, just in a realistic way. Like sometimes you don't want to text someone. But a computer is a machine built for texting someone, like a bot or something. So you just gotta make it stop talking to you for petty reasons. And then maybe I'll think I'm not talking to a computer. Not even petty reasons, just like bored. No longer interested. May or may not like the outcome of this animation. Still finding my bearings for live streaming. I haven't done it in a while. This is a different sort of accountability. Maybe I have any questions that aren't as much of a downer than me to go on a tangent about future of human existence. And you gotta maintain VR stuff. You still gotta supply power and such to those sorts of deals. Also, there's a bunch of people who've got like computer theory, but it's pretty much just belief in a higher power, but making it a human higher power. Like people who think they're high and mighty for believing that you live in a computer program. Because you're still believing in something that is a creator. You're just contextualizing it within your own understanding, giving it a little bit more of a format, and grounding it a little bit more in your understanding of reality. But then there's all the concepts of like who made that thing. And it's just one step removed. Just add in a layer to your understanding of existence. Virtual reality seems to like ebb and flow, come into popularity every decade or 2 decades. The more I think about the idea of VR being the last and only way to have humanity continue to exist, the more I'm like, why? Because you still gotta have people running it. It's gotta be operated somehow, and you have to have actual nutrition to bodies and such. Thank you, Emma and Lucas. About halfway done filling these guys in. So what's the point of being in a thing? Who's operating it? Is it just to have your cells exist? A nice little noise. Don't know if it picked up on mic. The noise of the ink. Little. Thank you. That animation is sort of coming out of trying. I like having graphics that are animations. Some of that comes out of like old animation stuff, like not 100% sure on the pronunciation, but zoetropes. That's what I've heard as the thing before. And phenakistoscopes, which are animation tools that you spin them in different ways, and I guess I'm getting hungry. It's getting closer to dinner time. But you can so they animate when you spin them, but you can also look at them as their own designs as a complete item, as all the frames presented at the same time. And they create interesting forms and design where it's a pattern with slight variation as it goes along. And then that sort of specific design and playing with how you can create optical illusions of sorts by offsetting things that are graphic, which I like playing with a lot. There was a designer, sculptor, artist. He made a lot of posters. It's Japanese named Shigeo Fukuda. He has some very nice, simple graphic work that communicates complex ideas. He also did a lot of work with shadow sculptures where he'd have seemingly abstract piles of things or objects that don't look like anything when you're viewing them sort of from a three-dimensional perspective, but if you shine a focused light on it, then it casts a shadow that has a clearly recognizable form to it. And I like that because it deals with translation of information how a lot of things that you interact with and consume and view and hear and see, in order to have that information communicated through a digital space, it has to be translated to different formats. Oh, my name is not Trace. It's just Trace Loops because I didn't know what rotoscoping was when I first started, and I didn't want to name myself according to a file format or something. My name is Matthias. It does not sound like trace at all, but it's referencing tracing. Tracing paper. Copying things by means of tracing. But yeah, so Shigeo Fukuda's a guy that I like his work of, and that however you got here, glad that you're here, Trace. I do have some people who have asked like if my name was Tracy or something before they know me in any other capacity. I studied graphic design at SCAD in Atlanta. Not sure where you're going, but I like graphic sort of work. And also in school I didn't have much money to print projects, so working in black and white was nice because it meant I didn't have to spend nearly as much money on ink. Hello in the UK. Okay, I just someone contacted me from the UK and I was making sure you weren't that same person. I haven't been to the UK for a while. I went when I was younger. Went to England, London, and then a little bit of Scotland. Went to Iona. And I forget all the time that UK is a lot of different spots. My family, if you go back, I think that I'm Welsh. I'm not 100% sure. I think I'm also a little bit Dutch. But I forget until started out using Tumblr a lot, and I still use it. But I don't get the same interaction as I used to there. I have a TikTok, but I don't use it that much. And then I've got a website. I've got like some sort of form of like most platforms, but Instagram's the primary one because I have a following of that's moderately active. That's not any criticism on any person there. Just at different points in time, I get more or less interactions as stuff changes and shifts, or how often I'm active on a platform. I took a break for a bit, kind of. I was working on a project and then got a little burnt out, and then visited my girlfriend after being tested for coronavirus, which came back negative. It's been tested 3 times? 4 times. 3 times. 3 times for active and then once for antibodies, and all of them came back, you don't got it. But while I was visiting her, I wasn't working on anything personal. And then when I got back, I had to work on some stuff and try to keep that momentum going, which is why I've been live streaming more consistently. for less than a week. And it is a lot of effort to keep up consistently doing stuff in any format. I've posted some things on TikTok, but I've been doing more still work recently. And TikTok doesn't have at least I haven't seen as much of like artist community there. I know it exists, but it's different. I feel a little bit more invasive in that space because I'm in my late 20s. Music wise, very good. If you get a song going big on TikTok, then like it's everywhere. That was Lil Nas X. Yeah, that's that dude's name. That was his strategy, and then he's just like, I'm just gonna make this song again and again. Smart, does it? He seems like an interesting dude. When I first heard it, I thought it was like a super silly song, and that it was just trying to like play to an algorithm, and then found out that's what it was going for. Just trying to take advantage of the situation. This brush is a 1/4 inch shading brush, or an angular shader. This specific one is Princeton Lauren, I guess, but Princeton Angular Shader. I like it a lot because it has that angle to it, so I can use it for thinner or thicker filling in of spaces. But because I'm using ink and it soaks up into it, I go through them kind of quickly. They're like $5 to $7 each. And if I'm not, if I don't treat it well, like don't clean it and such, then the bristles separate pretty quickly, which I can then use as a more textured brush. I don't know why I'm having trouble with those words. A more textured brush, but it doesn't work so well for filling in spaces like this, where I need a cleaner edge and it just have a bit more consistency. I don't know if I immediately felt weird on TikTok because I had some people respond. They're like, I'm 8, or I'm very young. And I'm like, oh, I feel weird. Well, if you look on TikTok, it's still trace loops. Also, I don't like, for TikTok, it's restrictive. It's pretty settled in the format. And I like having a little bit more variance in how I can crop and format things. I forget how many followers, but I don't post consistently there. Okay, I got like 10 minutes left. And I'm gonna hop off. I don't think I'm gonna finish this. Thanks, Carlos. Hello. Alright, I got like 3 more minutes and I'm gonna hop off. Hello, Amir. Let's try to get one more frame, and then I'll jump off. Been going for a bit. Yeah, that was a wave goodbye. I don't know. Okay. I'm gonna work on finishing this later. Thank you all for watching, whoever has been. Maybe for a minute. Try and post this stuff once it gets done. I'll have some texture. Thanks, Virginia. See if I can get any sort of Anyway, it'll look better once it's done. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go eat some food, work on this after, but I won't be live streaming it, and I'll try to be back tomorrow. Thanks, and goodbye.